Here we go. So let me try.
Yeah, should we try again? It should work now.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's still saying no.
Okay. Let me do that. Sharing options. All participants. Okay. So try now.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. And I'm going to share. Okay. Right, great. So that's who I am. I'm a health and wellness coach. And as I said, we're going to talk about 3 things today. We're going to talk about mental health awareness, week's theme of kindness, and anxiety and exhaustion. So let's get started. Just going to talk a little bit about mental health first of all. Mental health is about the way you think and feel and your ability to deal with life's ups and downs. Health, mental or physical, it's not like an on-off switch. You can't just switch it on and switch it off. There's sort of varying degrees of physical health. People move on a continuum ranging from great to good, to so-so, to poor, and all the way down to chronic illness. Some people have good health and no problems. Some people experience serious health problems, and their poor health has a very negative impact on their life. So most of us fall somewhere in the middle, and we're generally in good health, but mental health should really fall under the same theory. There are so many degrees of mental health, and in fact I would even go as far as to say there are more degrees of mental health than there are of physical health. And I hope that this time recently is going to give us a little bit more kind of focus on that. When it comes to mental health, we can just carry on and get through it, but it's really hard, and it's much better to try and address it before it becomes a big problem that really influences our life in a negative way. A lot of people suffer in silence, and that just doesn't help at all. So it's really important to try and get out there and talk about this a bit more. If we were physically unwell, we wouldn't suffer. We would definitely do something about it. We would call the doctor and make sure we are feeling our best. So it should be the same for our mental health too. We really need to ensure that we are not ignoring those niggling feelings and those telltale signs. We should aim to be not just physically well, but mentally and emotionally well too. You know, some of the things that we hear in our heads or we feel in our bodies can sometimes make us feel like we're on our own and we're the only ones. So it's really important to talk and acknowledge, to share those feelings, to realize there are solutions for those. It's often hard to know whether what we're feeling is something that is so negative that we should be doing something about it or not, or whether it's normal. So I always ask people to have a little mental health check. And these are 5 questions that I encourage people to sort of ask themselves when they're not feeling 100%. So putting a word to how you're feeling is a great way of sort of just kind of acknowledging that feeling, and it also helps us to let it go. So ask yourself, how am I feeling today? You know, put a word to it, even write it down if you want to, and then kind of acknowledging it, like I said, allows you to let it go. What's taking up your headspace? Like, what are you thinking about? What, you know, are they, just examine them, get curious about those thoughts and how valid they really are. When did I last eat a whole meal? The reason I say this is because when you're very anxious or very stressed, you tend not to eat. So it's really important to know that you're doing those 4 basic things of eat, sleep, taking downtime, etc. And are you tired? Sleep is the single best positive contributor to mental health. So it's really important to, you know, look at how you're feeling. If you're tired, obviously that's a contributor to feeling not so great. And what will I engage in today that will bring me joy? So also having a little bit of hope and positivity, trying to plan something in your day that will bring you joy, often gets you out of that cycle. Acknowledging your positive and negative feelings is the first step to positively impacting your mental health. If you are having difficulty, please lean on the people around you, lean on the support around you. If it's not somebody professional, if you know, make sure you're leaning on a friend who has an empathetic and listening ear. So remember those 4 things: talk, move, eat, and sleep. If you can get consistent with those, that's a really great place to start to try and positively impact your mental health. I'm spitting on my words today, I do apologise. Kindness. So kindness is the theme for Mental Health Awareness Week. And, you know, lots of people have been saying, why kindness? Well, you know, kindness is, it's really nice to be kind, but it's more than just a favourable way to be. Kindness and generosity have been linked to greater life satisfaction, stronger relationships, better mental and physical health. And apparently, generous people even live longer. So there's another good reason to be kind. But one of the most important things for me is compassion, self-compassion. Kindness has to start with you. We are all too quick to be very critical. That very harsh voice of criticism in our head can be very overwhelming. And, you know, it's really important, instead of judging ourselves, giving ourselves a hard time, especially at this time, which has been very challenging, that we allow ourselves to choose kindness over criticism. It's actually okay to not be okay. And here are 3 ways that you can practice self-compassion today, or for the rest of your life would be great. But so kindness is being aware or refraining from harsh criticism of self. Imagine that when you're talking to yourself, if you can just catch yourself doing that, imagine that you're saying those words to somebody else. Would you ever talk to anybody else the way you talk to yourself? You just wouldn't. So trying to use less strong language is a really great place to start. And like I said, try and catch yourself, to allow yourself to get the awareness around that very critical self-talk. And imagine you're talking to somebody else. Perfectionism is becoming such a big thing in our society, with sort of social media driving us to look a certain way, behave a certain way, have a certain lifestyle. I'm not a massive fan of social media. You know, LinkedIn is great, but some of the others can be very detrimental, especially if you're going through any mental health issues or anxieties. So first of all, letting go of perfection, very important. Understanding that not everybody is perfect. There is most of us are imperfect, and you know, it's quite normal to experience hardships. It's quite normal to experience challenges. So just allow those to be learning processes in your life, and try not to compare. And then this is quite an interesting one. So trying to maintain a non-biased awareness of experiences. Sometimes when we have conflict or interactions with people, you can get some very pointed, what feel like very personal responses. It's very easy to have a very narrow view of that, and make it all about you, or make it all about somebody, you know, pointing towards you. If you try and look at the other side, look at the wider view, look at it from another person's point of view, that can be really helpful at not letting those comments become obsessive in your mind and damaging your feeling of, you know, your positivity. So just having a non-biased awareness of experiences can be a really great thing to practice. So try those 3 things for yourself. So self-compassion. Obviously, kindness is also about being kind to others. Kindness invites us to consider others' feelings. By being kind, we're sort of being empathetic to how our actions will affect that of those we are interacting with. So that's a really important thing to think about. Kindness to others invites compassion, and thus is able to naturally evolve into further acts of kindness. It really is contagious. When you're kind to somebody else, it's really hard for them to not be kind back to you. When you send an email that's kind and inviting and compassionate, you know, it's much harder for that person to send an email back that's kind of rude and pointed and short. So this is another exercise. It's up to you if you want to do this, but this has been quite an interesting way to actually practice kindness to others. And it's basically spend the next 5 days trying to perform an act of kindness, either in words or action, to the people around you or the people that you interact with. So it has to be a different act of kindness over the next 5 days. So you can't make a cup of tea for your flatmate and then do that again the next day. It has to be something different. This is just really making us aware of being kind in our day-to-day life. So just give it a go and see how that works. And if you want to spread more, you know, further kindness, you can think about volunteering. There's plenty of places to volunteer at the moment in the NHS. The drivers, I mean, but there's plenty more out there. Or also some fundraising, you know, do a run or do something for charity to raise some money for the, you know, much needed in some of these charities at the moment. So have a think about that. And then I love this quote. It says, "Unexpected kindness is the most powerful, least costly and most underrated agent of human change." And boy, do we need a little bit of that at the moment. So that's kindness. And I'm just going to move on to anxiety. So, you know, managing anxiety and stress has been quite a challenge for certainly a lot of the companies that I work with, and even individuals. There's a lot of reason to be anxious. There's a lot of reason to be stressed. There's been all the kind of COVID-19, the pandemic, and everything that comes with that in terms of uncertainty. And now we're moving on to going back to work anxiety. So that's another kind of stress. So these So all of these stresses that are kind of global, but then also individual stresses and personal stresses and work stresses. So if you imagine all of these stresses are like air filling up in a big balloon, and they're getting bigger and bigger and quite unmanageable. And as the day goes on, you kind of collect these stresses, and if they remain as a stress in the back of your head all day, that becomes like an anxiety. And if you just allow all of this just to stay together and collect in your head, it gets overwhelming. However, if you just release a bit of the pressure by opening the neck of the balloon, you kind of reduce that turgid feeling and allow that balloon to become much more stable. This is what I call a micro change. This is allowing you to spend 1 to 5 minutes releasing the air of that balloon, swapping from your fight or flight nervous system to that calmer nervous system, to take the pressure off, to reduce that, to basically be kind to your nervous system, to allow it to have a little break. And that's what I have used and practiced with many CEOs and companies and everybody that I talk to, and it has worked really well. And considering it only takes 1 to 5 minutes, it's something that everyone can fit into their day. By interrupting that nervous system through the day, also positively impacts your sort of quality of sleep at night as well. And what is a micro change? So you can take 2 to 5 minutes to do any of these kind of things. Conscious breathing, which is breathing in for 3, holding for 4 and out for 5. But it's not limited to just like breathing, meditation. You could be walking, listening to your favorite song, dancing, laughing. It's about changing the state. Stress and anxiety is not all bad. And it's really important to remember that this is a natural function in the body. It's a stress response is a very normal function. You know, use it when you're running, when you're having, you know, got a really important meeting, that adrenaline and cortisol you need. But the key is to be able to turn it on when you need it and turn it off when you don't. And actually practicing micro changes allows you to really work that muscle. And once you've got that muscle worked, you know, you've sort of made it really. If you have the ability to turn it on when you need it and turn it off when you don't, it's going to help you so much with your health and wellness throughout your life. So a couple of other things that I really love to talk about as solutions to anxiety. First of all, it's a thing called the worry journal. The worry journal is essentially a list, you know, is a book that you could write in or on a computer, which allows you to sort of defer your worry. Generalized anxiety disorder, or anxiety as we know it, is a lack of compartmentalizing. It's a lack of prioritizing our thoughts. A lot of us may be really organized in our physical life, and actually often anxious people are very neat, tidy and organized. But being physically tidy doesn't necessarily mean you're tidy in your head. And often with anxiety, you just do have a lot of things open at the same time. And we can't deal with this. So getting it out of our head onto a piece of paper is the idea behind the worry journal. And what you do is you allocate a time in your diary to actually sit and go through those worries. So you basically take them out of your head, put them into another place and allocate some time to go through them, and really that gives you a bit more focus as to what really is a worry, what's a priority and what's not. This is not like a to-do list. This is literally making sure that the things that you are worrying about, which seem important to you, are somewhere for you to go back to later, rather than carrying them all in your head. So, we missed out the worry chart. Oh yes, the worry chart. This is like a really simple tool. I'm sure you've all read it all as it's been up for the last couple of minutes, but this, I mean, it looks really rudimentary and so simple, but sometimes when you're in the midst of the worry, it can just be such a great way to just let it go or do something about it. So very simply, what is the worry? Can I do something about it? Yes. Can I do something about it now? So do it. If I can't, can I do something about it in the future? So schedule it, and then let it go. And then if you're going over and over in your head with a worry that you can't do something about, then it says, can I do something about it? No, so just let it go. And then you change your focus. You can use a micro change to sort of bring your body down and allow yourself to change focus, or do some of the things that I suggested, or whatever works for you to change state. Some people, I had a CEO that a client that I used to coach in Dubai, used to just sit and watch Friends for like 10 minutes or whatever, just sit and do something that totally took his mind off work and then come back to it. So the final topic that we are going to talk about is Zoom exhaustion. So that's a real thing, okay? It's really interesting. And I definitely have felt the effects of this. I've been online a lot in the last 8 weeks. So since COVID hit, we're on video calls a lot more than ever before, and many are finding it really exhausting. Video chats, they really mean that we have to work harder to process non-verbal cues like facial expressions, the tone and pitch of the voice, body language. Paying more attention to these basically consumes a lot of energy. And that's why we're exhausted, really. So according to a professor who explores sustainable learning in the workplace, what he says about video calls is our minds are together when our bodies feel we're not. So there's this kind of dissonance which causes people to have conflicting feelings, and that is exhausting. You cannot relax into a conversation naturally as you would if you were face to face with someone. And some other key findings which contribute towards Zoom exhaustion are, so delays on the phone or conferencing systems of 1.2 seconds made people perceive the responder as less friendly or less focused. And silence is another challenge, whereas this is normal in real life, when it happens on Zoom, there's like a kind of a natural anxiety that you've got a tech failure or something's gone wrong. So not to mention the idea of being watched, people naturally look at themselves to see how they're performing, and that all adds extra noise, not to mention anxiety. And I was on a round table this morning, and I saw there was a guy who was, being invited to talk, and he suddenly started going, is that Lords? Is that the cricket ground, Lords, in the background, looking at a picture on someone's wall behind them? So, you do get distracted. You can't help but take in all of this information. So what can we do about it? Some of the companies that I've been working for have suggested that internal calls, so calls within the company, are screen-free, which means that they don't have to show their face, which has released a lot of pressure for a lot of people. So that's a really great suggestion. But also there's a few of these other things. So number one, take a few moments before you start. So before you literally, it's very tempting to go to the computer, press start, and off you go, and your adrenaline is already high. So taking a few breaths, literally feeling your body in your chair, having a few moments to just allow your mind to settle and arrive fully. It can be really helpful. Something we don't do, just a momentary pause before we press start. So that taking time to really greet whoever is in the room with your full attention. Now, I think this for me is more about acknowledging that you are on a call with several people. And what we do in normal life is we walk into a room, we kind of say hello, 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 hello. And on Zoom, we just don't do that. There's a really weird kind of feeling where you just come in, like I didn't do today, but so sort of almost in your head, acknowledging your presence and that you're kind of acknowledging everyone and saying hello helps you to sort of bridge that gap, mentally. Choose speaker view. You can choose lots of views, gallery view, speaker view. It makes sense to choose speaker view because then you're just focusing mainly on one person and listening to them rather than having a look what everyone else is doing or getting again distracted by all that visual stimulation. All of that stimulation is all information that adds to your mental exhaustion. So yes, try and focus on that one person that's really talking and resisting the urge to multitask. So when you're on a Zoom call, there's lots of temptation to do other stuff because you're not really there. You're just another box on a screen. So you find yourself kind of doing lots of different things, and therefore you don't really focus on either. You're not, you're splitting your attention. So try and just focus. And also you're obviously using up more mental headspace. So yes, and taking breaks is really important between sessions. I've had a lot of people saying that they've been stuck to their chair. They haven't been able to sort of get up and move. Your eyes, when in close proximity to the screen, get very tired. To allow your eyes to relax, you need to have distance. So if you're sat in front of a screen all day and you're just looking, you're going to get mentally tired, but also your eyes physically get very, very tired. So I always, as soon as I finish a Zoom call, which I'll do even when this one is over, I get up, I walk around, I stretch, I make a cup of tea, I do something that physically gets my body moving. And it only takes a couple of minutes, and then I come back and carry on. And finally, remember that this is a new thing. This is quite new. Although Zoom has been around for a long time, the idea of having to do a lot of our work and communication online is quite a new thing. So, it's fine to let it sit where it sits at the moment. I think it's better than not having any communication, but it's obviously not as good as being like right there with somebody in the room. For some, actually, they prefer Zoom, but for most of us, that seems to be the case. I'm just going to talk a little bit about I have an app that you're welcome to join if you want to. Please just drop me an email. It's just a bit of, it's a lot of the resources that I share on my talks, but also you have an opportunity to speak one-to-one. But also, I wanted to be able to offer something to JLD members. So I am offering a half an hour, 30-minute free session to anybody who's got any issues that haven't come up, who's struggling or suffering, just to have a 30-minute one-to-one coaching session, which I would normally charge for, but I just want to offer that out to support JLD. Just drop me a line on the hello@wellnesswithme.co.uk or try and contact me on the Eugenie app. And yeah, that's it. Thanks. Yeah, that's me back. Is that
Brilliant.
James?
Thank you, Tayyaba. No, I can hear you. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Tayyaba. I think a lot of that is so helpful. And I think we're all bombarded, I think, at the moment with mental health talks and well-being talks and think this way, think that way. But actually, when you've got practical things you can use, actual steps you can take, especially with things like the Zoom exhaustion. And I mean, I can't really complain because I'm furloughed. I don't spend as much time in the office. But even I get fed up of the number of calls. I think, does this need to be on Zoom? Does it need to be on camera? Why isn't this just a phone call like it used to be? So I think things like that are practical. It's good to hear it sort of voiced and shared. And the same sort of with the worry chart. I mean, I'm fortunate in that I'm not a person who gets stressed. I'm a very sort of, but it's because I act in a way that you sort of laid out in that chart. I'm very much the kind of person who's, can I do anything about this? No, I can't. So why the hell worry about it? But I recognise, and I've known a lot of people in my life who can't necessarily work in that way. So you need that more fundamental writing it down, working it through to be able to get there. But also as somebody who supports people who maybe have health issues, mental health, or anxiety issues, sometimes you just need to recognise that people just want to vent, I guess. It's not always about finding a solution. It's just venting your issues and talking to people.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's why I just really wanted to reach out and offer a bit of help. I did a talk for the BBC yesterday and I was really surprised at how many people came out afterwards with real issues. So I think it's really important to get down and dirty with individuals who are really struggling. And that's why I wanted to reach out. But yeah, it is. Everybody's a bit Zoom happy and it's great if we can try and go back to the good old fashioned telephone call.
Exactly. Well, thank you again, Tayyaba. And just so everyone knows, we record all our calls. So this will be available on the Eugenie app, so you can watch as many times as you want and obviously come back to it. We're also going to keep going, obviously, with community calls each week. Our plan going forward is actually we're going to start advertising our calls more widely across social media. So at the moment, we've only been sharing the link within Eugenie itself, but actually we're going to start sharing the link across our social media platforms. And I'm hoping we'll have you back again, Tayyaba, to do another talk later down the line. We'll see sort of an increase in numbers as we start to share it more widely and get more people on the calls, because we think the calls are a really good tool and asset for people. And it's great to see so many people joining across the time and so many people actually watching the videos afterwards as well. So thank you all, everyone who came along, and thank you, Tayyaba, again, and I hope you all have a great bank holiday weekend.
Great.
Take care.
And you, thank you so much. My pleasure. Always. Really enjoy it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tayyaba. Cheers. Take care, Bob.
I can't actually turn this off.
Don't worry, I'll end meeting for all.